Welcome to the Loom Room. My name is Brian Scott. I am the Director of Operations for Loom, joined by Yolanda Scott, who is the founder and CEO of Loom. In the studio with us today, Scott Munday. Scott is a senior leader at Green Energy Solutions, or GES, with more than 20 years in the geothermal industry and over 40 years in construction. He specializes in project estimation, system design, troubleshooting, and large-scale geothermal installations. Based in GES's Oklahoma City office, Scott helps organizations navigate complex energy decisions while balancing performance, cost, and long-term impact. He holds a degree in business administration from Oklahoma State University. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
Boyd Lee is a retired energy executive with over 40 years of experience across electric cooperatives and generation and transmission systems in Oklahoma. He now leads a consulting practice focused on geothermal heating and cooling and its impact on electric utilities, particularly cooperatives. Boyd has pioneered innovative programs including geothermal loop installations, demand control initiatives in alternative rate structures, and brings a long-range systems perspective to energy planning and policy. Thank you, Boyd, for joining us. Boyd, if you could, glad to have you. If you could just answer the question for us, Boyd, what is geothermal heating and cooling?
Geothermal heating and cooling is simply changing the path of absorbing heat to put into your home from the outside air to the ground beneath us. And in the summer, instead of dumping the heat that's in your home into the outside air, which is equally as hot or hotter, it dumps it into the cool ground. That is the entire difference. All of the same components exist in conventional heating and cooling as in geothermal. The difference is in most instances, there is no outside coil section. Instead, there is a buried loop of continuously circulating fluid that serves as that coil. So it heats you and cools you just the same as anything else. It's actually much better because by its very nature, it operates with a cooler coil and a warmer coil because of how it transfers heat to and from the house. And so the air temp that people get inside the home is very comfortable. I used to hear a lot of complaints about air source heat pumps because they felt cold, and they were. They put out 88-degree air on your skin, and that feels a little cool when you're running around with 98.6 blood temperature. But with the Geo, you won't ever experience that problem. It evenly tempers the home because of its variable speed run times. It's a far superior machine than conventional equipment.
Geothermal been around a long time. Geothermal is basically taking the ground source temperature and rejecting heat and extracting heat out of the ground temperature. In simple terms, it's your conventional system. You have a unit outside that's moving air across the fan coil, and at 65 degrees, it's as efficient as it'll ever be. And luckily, living here in Oklahoma, those 65 degrees days are kind of rare, and the summer gets hot. And as that temperature increases from 65, it loses efficiency. And when it gets below 65, it's also losing efficiency. So we like to say every day is a perfect day in the geothermal world because our ground temperature right here in Oklahoma is in the mid 60s, and it's loving life. It's as good as it gets. So in a simple term, that's it in a basic nutshell.
Why do you think, Scott, that more organizations are paying attention to geothermal now? It's not something that we've heard as much about in the past, and is becoming more popular, more widely adopted. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. A lot of the recent push is somewhat tax credit related. It's taken geothermal is a little bit more expensive than a conventional heat and air system because of the ground loop that's outside of the house. The tax credit has basically paid for that loop. A lot of it in Oklahoma, we're pretty fortunate to have some decent energy prices, especially gas. For Oklahoma is big in the natural gas and natural gas heaters, and it's cheap to use. As that price goes up, it makes geothermal look even better. It's absolutely the most efficient heating and cooling system that's available at this time. So along with the tax credits, it's energy efficient. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer for a residence. It's a no-brainer for a commercial project, a school, anybody that owns a building, especially we can project that energy savings out over 30 years. And it's pretty amazing to see those numbers.
So are you seeing more use in commercial or residential, or is it kind of an even split between both?
It's about, there's really not much. They're both, the industries, they're climbing at an equal pace right now. There's really not much. We do a lot of residential. We do a lot of commercial. I don't think anyone's outpacing the other.
So, Scott, if you will, I want to kind of speak about the relationship that GES has, that you have with Curtis Lofton, and who Curtis is. I mean, most of us are familiar with Curtis Lofton. If you're a football fan, whether it's OU or whether it's at the NFL level, Curtis is definitely a hero to a lot of us here. But we understand that you have a special relationship with Curtis and GES. If you could kind of speak to that relationship and the origin of that relationship and what's come out of it.
Sure. He's a hero to us too. So not just Oklahoma. He has become a part of B&H and GES. It started a couple of years ago. He came down and spoke at a couple of our Christmas parties. We're strung out a little bit. We have office in Tulsa and Oklahoma City and Goldsby and South Texas. And so he spoke at each of the Christmas functions and told us his story. And he kind of got involved. We do a little kids ministry where we donate some Christmas gifts to some unfortunate kids and inner city kids. And he saw what we were doing. And he said, I was one of those kids, and kind of touched his heart. So he kind of took us in under his wing and became a part of our company. And he comes every Thursday and helps lead a Bible study. He shows up on Tuesday and does the same thing. And he's just such a dynamic, likable guy. The guy's just naturally he's just a leader. He's a natural leader, and he brings guys up in a great way. Fantastic human being. Not only, unfortunately, he's a Sooner, but that's a story all by itself. But he's a phenomenal guy.
And so along those lines, you talk about the work that he does in the community and that GES does. Can you talk to us a little bit about the social impact initiatives of GES, and particularly GES as a second chance employer for a lot of individuals? Just share with us.
Yeah, we don't care about a person's past. Everybody's got one. We want to break the cycle. We want the next generation to be better. If it's an alcohol issue or a drug issue, we want to break the chain and stop it. And those issues don't scare us. We take men. We'll bring them out of prison. We'll bring them out of drug rehab. We have some local judges that work with us. That's it in a nutshell. We're not concerned about your past. We're concerned about your future. We have several programs. Growing Oaks is one of them. We'll have a 8-week course that teaches basic budgeting, insurance, mortgages, stuff that a lot of these guys that had a dad that didn't teach them. And we take them and we raise them up and we pour into them. And we try to make them godly men. We sprinkle a little prayer on them and a little Jesus throughout their life and throughout the day, and it works.
Can you talk about some of the success stories that you've seen with formerly incarcerated individuals coming to work for GES and just kind
Yeah.
of the development and growth that you've seen along those lines.
Sure. These guys, man, they come broken as a lot of people are. We've got guys that have come out of prison. He had lost his kids. He had absolutely nothing 4 years ago. He's now a homeowner. He has his kids back in his life. They live with him. He's on fire. You take these guys and like I said, you get them in touch with God and let God do his work. Let God be God. Let him show off a little bit. And these guys, I wish one of them was here to share his testimony. It's pretty amazing. These guys, I mean, the success stories they're endless. We have the train wrecks too. You can't fix them all, but there's a lot of success stories. We've got guys that have come, and we have mandatory drug testing, and it's typically a one strike and you're back, you're out. But these guys, they know this is the last chance for them. And most of them are absolutely the best employees and the best guys you'll ever meet. Once they get it turned around, they've been down the wrong road. Now we get them on the right road, and we try to keep them out of the bar ditch. Sometimes it's a little bit of steering, but if we can get them going down the road, we got them.
That's amazing. So you talk about giving people a chance.
Exactly.
People may have instances of things that have occurred in their past, but what are you looking for in terms of an employee, someone that wants to become a part of the GES family? What is it that you're looking for in these individuals, regardless of their past or whatever else? What is the core of what you're looking for in a member of your GES family?
Well, heart is the big one. They have to buy in. And some guys they don't want to be coached. They don't want to be led, and you have to find out what pushes that guy's buttons. And heart is the big one. They have to want to work, they have to want to stay, and they have to learn.
So you all who are listening, if you want to work and you have heart, you're willing to work, GES may be the ideal place for you. So you've been with GES for a while. Can you kind of speak to the history of GES in terms of how it started and how it's going in terms of the development now from the inception of GES to the present?
Sure. GES started about, I think it's 18 years ago, 17 for sure. Started out as going to be the geothermal drilling division of B&H. Started with 6 or 7 guys in a division, and we had 2 drilling rigs. We had a couple drillers. Now we're running 9 rigs. We covered the state. We're doing government work. I think we're probably north of 40 guys in geothermal. We have a couple of supervisors. We have probably 8 crew leaders. We have a great crew right now. These guys are pretty dynamic.
Wonderful. Can you speak to the future of GES? Are there future plans, anything that's in store that the public may want to be aware of?
Sure. We have a chance we've got a chance to go to work on some Army bases around the country. We're on Fort Sill right now. The next one on the books is going to be Fort Riley up in Kansas. After that, we'll probably go to Georgia. The future looks really bright, both for geothermal and for GES. We want to, I don't know how to control the growth. The bases would love to have us at every base right now, but that's pretty big. The drilling rigs are about $1.3 million, and they want 6 of them in Kansas. So do the quick math, and it's a lot. So that'll be our next step, will be Kansas. Expansion wise, we probably need another 6 drillers, probably another 18 guys for personnel. So the future looks good.
Wonderful. And so speaking of the future, so if I'm considering geothermal and I'm on the edge about it, what would you say that could possibly make the difference in my decision to switch to geothermal energy?
Well, the big thing I would say would be energy cost. The geothermal is going to save you money from now on. It will surpass the installation cost. It'll start paying you back. And depending on how much it costs and energy prices and energy use, there's some formulas that we can put into a program and calculate that. But we could put it on paper and show you from your conventional system to your geothermal system and how the energy savings alone will pay for itself. It's a no-brainer. I mean, if you had a facility that needed to be conditioned, it's an absolute no-brainer. The units last longer than conventional systems. They're more energy efficient. The maintenance is easier. And once that well field, which is the cost is what drives the cost of geothermal up is the well field. And once that's paid for, you're going to replace a conventional system and you're going to have to replace a geothermal system somewhere down the road. Well, that well field's already paid for. So now you're just still saving money from now on.
Great. So there's definitely an opportunity to save money and to provide more efficient energy. All right. Boyd, if you wouldn't mind, would you describe what a geothermal loop installation entails? What is that process and how complex is it to perform that installation?
It is not complex at all to me because I've been involved in it for 40 years, but I put in the first 3-ton system here in my house where I live now. I put it in myself. I trenched it in. I went with a horizontal loop, and so that loop now has been in play for 15 years, and it's the same water that I put in it on day one, along with the antifreeze solution, and that water has made its way around my property probably 1 million times or more. And like I said, I put it in myself. I heat fused the pipe and then covered the trench back up and made my own. Well, I didn't have a header. I just came in with both pipes straight to the pump and hooked it all up, and it works like a champ. Now, Scott and his crew came out and did my second 3-ton system on the other end of my house when my conventional heat pump went out, and they put in a 3-ton vertical loop. So they tore up maybe 45 feet of my yard is all, because they drill a hole and move back 15 feet, drill a hole, move back 15 feet, drill a hole, and dig one header pit and connect them together. And that's it. They did the entire loop job in a day. They finished the inside part then on another day, but still the drilling and everything was very quick. The biggest, I guess the trickiest part of geo that people have to understand is that if you've got an immaculate yard, it's going to be messed up for a few days. So don't get all bent out of shape about it. That's our biggest issue is mama comes out the door sometimes and sees her pristine yard and she decides she doesn't like that heat pump. But no, with a little bit of patience and the right summer, you can't tell where they were by the end of the summer.
And so that impact is temporary, but not to be compared with the benefits of switching to geothermal energy.
Oh yeah.
Boyd, you mentioned that you had some experience working with electric cooperatives. What would you say is the biggest impact of geothermal heating and cooling on the electric utilities, particularly the cooperatives?
That is a great question, and it's what I've made my living on. I have been fortunate in that throughout my career, I was offered the opportunity to study rates and rate design and to learn what goes into rate making and all the costs of service that are involved. And once I understood that, then I was able to apply that knowledge to the different types of programs, for example, ground source heat pumps and so forth, and show what the economic impact is short-term and long-term. And it became a very quick no-brainer that the geothermal is the key to our long-term financial condition of our residential rate class. I don't know how much you know about load factor, but load factor in the residential rate class is very, very low. It simply means that there's a lot of demand for energy at some times, but then very low demand for energy at those other times. We have very high peaks and very low valleys. You still have to pay for the power created by that peak all year long. And so the geothermal lowers that peak and fills that valley. And so now the load factor of that rate class becomes more levelized. And because that's your worst rate class in the whole utility, that makes a big difference for the entire utility. And so, just as an example, the co-op that I just retired from, we had a program for 12 years. And in that 12 years, we put in over 1,600 systems. And we made a change of $1.2 million a year in our margins. Co-op doesn't really call them profits, but we call them margins. But nevertheless, $1.2 million a year, every year from now on. It doesn't just end after that first year. So when you look at it like that, it becomes very, very valuable.
So describe in practical terms what those savings look like for individual consumers and also for businesses, and also if you can kind of speak to what those alternative rate structures look like as well.
Okay. Well, the savings that the customer realizes are in three areas. One is air conditioning, the other is heating, and then the third is water heating. Most geothermal systems come equipped with what's called a waste heat recovery unit in there that captures heat, excess heat off the compressor and any unused heat in that coil before it goes back into the loop in the ground, and it transfers it to your water heater. So in most cases, it will preheat your tank, let's say 30 or 40 degrees. Well, that's 30 or 40 degrees that your tank does not have to work to finish heating. And so the savings in water heating is usually around 30 to 40%. In some seasons, like the summer, your water heating savings is greater because you've got more heat to get rid of. In the wintertime, you need that heat for your house, so it sends less to the water heater. But nevertheless, over the course of the year, the average is going to be 30 to 40% savings on the water heating portion alone. Depending on where you started, as far as efficiency of the existing equipment that you took out, will determine how much you'll save. So if you took out a 20-year-old air conditioner unit that's been out there forever, you're taking out a dog and you're replacing it with a Cadillac, and you're going to save at least 40 to 50% on cooling cost. And if you're going to save at least that much again on the heating side as well. So depending on how much of your bill is attributed to heating, air conditioning, and water heating, determines how much you end up saving. That's where the utility needs to step in. Because it's so valuable to the utility to have you as a geo user, then we need to step in and give you the incentive difference between what it costs you to replace with conventional and what it costs you to replace with geothermal. That way, you don't have to worry about a payback period. You're going to get it. And the utility is going to get you for life. And so that's the mechanism that we use to build our program, and it works like a champ.
Great. That's a great explanation there. And we've talked about a lot of the economic benefits. Boyd, I'd like for you to speak to the environmental impact as well, in terms of what are some of the greater benefits in terms of the environment when we talk about geothermal energy.
Well, I guess it just depends on it depends on what you buy into as far as the science that we are inundated with on a daily basis. To play along with the current um, atmosphere, if you will, of decarbonization, then just the very fact that you're consuming far less energy is resulting in decarbonization of the planet. So, if that is a major thing that your state is after, or even your federal government under different administrations, then the geothermal qualifies better than anything because of the levelized cost in the summer and the winter, with the third option of water heating. There is nothing that compares to it at all. And solar and wind, they don't describe decarbonization like geothermal does.
Okay. Is there anything about this region, particularly in Oklahoma, that makes us more of an ideal candidate for geothermal?
Yes, Scott mentioned it earlier. It is our ground temperature. We are in the lap of luxury, in my opinion, right here in Oklahoma, because you just never get a cold loop and you never get a hot loop, assuming that everything was sized accordingly and up front, and you just can't beat it. You get further down in Texas, they get warmer ground, so you gotta use more loop to dissipate, to keep the loop as cool as possible. But we are perfectly geographically located in Oklahoma as far as ground temperature is concerned.
So, as an individual or as a business owner, if I am on the fence about switching to geothermal, what would you say to convince me to make the leap from more traditional energy sources?
Right now, as a commercial user, you still have access to some pretty significant tax credits. They're at minimum of 30%, and it could be as high as 50%, depending on what levels of qualifications your business has. So really, for a commercial entity, it's a no-brainer from the get-go, because all of your cost difference in the beginning is the loop. Well, if the tax incentive takes care of that cost, then it is no different for you to purchase geo compared to conventional equipment. So why would you purchase something that costs you more money? Now, on the residential side, unfortunately, with current climate in the United States, we have lost our tax credit that we had. It was a 30% tax credit, which is very, very valuable to the buyer on the residential level. This is where, in my opinion, the utilities are missing the boat, and they better remove their heads from said dark spots, because that needs to be picked up and covered by the utility so that the customer can afford that investment. Because in a lot of cases, the price difference between the two is not always justified in the savings that the customer sees. If you're basing your entire decision on savings, sometimes we can't do it. But if you throw the comfort, the longevity of life, and the savings together as your decision making, then it does become a good deal. The other thing you got to remember is that pipe that you put in the ground, it's going to be there long after you pass from this earth. It's going to be there 40, 50, 60 years, maybe even longer. That's going to last. That's going to be 3 systems. So the first time you buy, it's going to be a little higher. The second time you buy and the third time you buy, it's not. So You just have to, people have to make their decision based on their own value set. It's a little tougher sell right now, I admit that, but it shouldn't be if the utilities will do their job.
What do you see as the future of geothermal energy in Oklahoma and beyond?
Well, I think it's already gaining momentum, especially in the commercial sector. GES, they're already hitting home runs with by picking up school systems. That's our current target right now. Is the geothermal are perfectly made for the school systems. They're clean. They don't have to worry about combustion air. They don't have to worry about flames of any kind. It is the safest heating and cooling system there is. It's environmentally sound, and it's perfect for schools. And plus, they can qualify for some major money. The rest of the industry, I think, over the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to see geothermal become 25 to 30% of the market.
How does geothermal compare to, say, solar or wind?
The reality is geothermal is the only true renewable that we have, because the sun never sets on it and the wind doesn't matter. And it operates 24/7, 365. Solar is it's a flash in the pan as far as the amount of energy that you get out of it. Because even in a solar-rich area like Oklahoma, you only have about 5.5 hours out of the day where you can hopefully achieve the maximum output of a solar panel. And then the rest of those hours are somewhat less than that. And so you're going to utilize that amount of power in your home while it's being generated. So that's okay, except when the sun goes down, now you're going to utilize our power again. And so although there is savings, the payout is very, very long. There's so many stories that you'll hear. One thing you don't ever see, and tell me if you have you ever seen a commercial on TV of a homeowner that has solar bragging about it? It's because they can't. They just don't pay off. And I don't know if you've seen recent stories or not on wind generation out in the panhandle of Texas, down by Sweetwater. There are 2 grave sites of wind blades that have been chopped in half and stored out there. 500,000 metric tons so far of wind blades that haven't been recycled or anything. They've got nowhere to go with them. So what we don't stop to think about sometimes is the end of life of these wonderful renewables. What is the end of life? Where do they go? Well, they're going into piles. You've seen pictures of broken out solar panels from hailstorms and things like that. You know, I'm not trying to be anti-solar or anti-wind at all. They both work. But the only way that they're even halfway close to affordable is because we have arbitrarily, as a government, forced up the cost of electric energy from fossil fuels so high that it makes them more justifiable. So that's a false economy. We've made the other high just so you can afford this one. That's not smart economics in my books. So you might not want to use that. I don't know, but that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Hey, Boyd.
Yeah.
Do you think either one of those industries would be here without government subsidies?
No. They cannot stand on their own.
You think geothermal would be here without government subsidies
Yes.
and tax credits?
Yes.
Makes it harder to sell, but it is sustainable.
And as soon as the utilities pull their heads out and figure that out, then yes, it'll get even bigger.
All right. So it seems like it's a source of energy that is here to stay. And
Here's
you know,
another
people. Yeah.
Here's another point, Brian. I'm sorry.
No.
This is one of my favorite slides. Every time you bury a ground loop outside someone's home, it is the same as burying a power generator, because that ground loop enables you to reduce your summer peak by 2.65 kW. That means the utility does not have to purchase 2.65 kW of energy to cover your demand, because the loop enables you to provide it yourself. So it's just like having a power plant below your house. The more of those power plants that we have around the United States, then the more valuable that the geothermal becomes. And those power plants reduce the capacity that's required right now. So the more of those homes and businesses that we convert to geo frees up capacity for data centers and whatever, without having to reconstruct lines and build new plants.
That's good information, good to know. And I think things that a lot of people don't consider because they're just not aware. Aside from schools, what other types of entities do you see as ideal candidates for geothermal?
Well, any type of business that operates around the clock, or at least conditions around the clock, is a candidate for geothermal. Because if you're, let's say, a shop building where you've got some infrared heaters and things like that on your mechanics during the day, they're comfortable with that, and you don't need any extra thing. That's not a candidate for a geothermal, unless you look at geothermal in the floor. A radiant geothermal also has radiant grids that can go into the concrete when they pour the concrete, and you get radiant heat up off the floor at any time. Now that's a winner, but you got to do that when you're building. So anyway, but hospitals will be a prime target. You know how much air hospitals have to change out every single hour? Constant air changes, constant. And that gets expensive. And hospitals' utility costs are terrible because of all the heat exchange that has to, or the air exchange that has to go on. And so geothermal doesn't change the amount of air that is required, but it changes the amount of cost that's in that air. So.
Okay. Good. So in terms of the biggest misconceptions about geothermal energy, what would you say are some of the misconceptions that you can possibly dispel here for us?
That's a good question. I really haven't had too much contact with people over the years who've had misconceptions. I think more than anything, I've had people that were miseducated, and so once they had the process explained to them, how it works and so forth, then they became believers. I think that's another weakness that we've got in the program that is slowly being changed by IGSPA. You mentioned them earlier. That's the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. Through IGSPA, we now have training to train individuals or certify individuals as drillers, as contractors, as instructors, different things like that. But we also have training for people, energy advisors who work at utilities and things of that nature. Once they learn the technology themselves, then they have credibility when they turn around and talk to an individual. And if we can get more educated people out there, we can get more credibility. And when that happens, Katie bar the door, it's gonna go wild. But we need, unfortunately, we have retired out most of our energy experts over the past couple of decades, and we didn't replace them with energy experts. We replaced them with newsletter editors and things like that. Nothing against that; those are necessary evils, but not evils. They're necessary jobs. But so is the energy advisor. That's the biggest one of all, I believe.
All right. So what kind of skill sets are needed in terms of the support of the industry going forward, and what type of opportunities are there for individuals as it pertains to being a part of the solution as it pertains to geothermal?
The skill set is common sense and a desire to work. There are many, many kids who are graduating from high school with no hope. They're not going to go to college. They don't want to go to college. And frankly, they don't need to go to college when this industry exists. You can go to work as an apprentice with any type of contractor, whether it's heating, air conditioning, or whatever, and within a few years be making more money than you ever would have made coming out of college. And that's the truth. We need, and we do a really poor job in our schools of addressing this with our young people who don't have a desire to go to college. They shouldn't be looked down upon for that. Everybody, we've got to fill the roles of the trades. We have to.
So it sounds like there's ample opportunity for those who want to get involved.
Boyd, you mentioned apprenticeships, and as a teacher, former teacher, administrator, those are valued skill sets for the trades. We talk about it. We're really trying to push it. You said all of the things that there's just a misconception sometimes about the trades and whether students should go to college or not. And a lot of times I think students kind of already dismiss they can't do anything about energy, or I'm not good at science and math, those type of things. So when you have young people who are interested or maybe on the fence, what would you say to them? And then the follow-up question to that is, what would you say to those counselors to try to get them in? Because we don't always get in front of the students, but a lot of times counselors just don't know the information. And then also, are you all a registered apprenticeship?
I'm a huge believer in apprenticeships. I don't know how many of our contractors that are out here in Oklahoma advertise, but I know there are a bunch of them that would do apprenticeships. But there's also the technology centers that need to be put in front of these guys too, because that's for free. They can go and basically get their apprenticeship by just going to school, that kind of school, trade school. And so that'd be my number one recommendation is get them interested in VOTEC, what used to be VOTEC, but the technology centers, and instill upon them the fact that that's not a level down. That's just a different choice of career type. And I think that's where societally we've really done our kids a disservice by making them believe if they don't go to college, they're losers. And man, I don't agree with that at all. I know some guys in this trade that make $250,000 a year installing geothermal heat pump systems. Now they're the owners, so you know they didn't get there by accident. But even starting off nowadays, an apprenticeship, I mean a first year guy can make $45,000-$50,000, and within just a few years can be making 100. And that's true of plumbing and electricity and all that kind of stuff. But we are slowly, seems like we are slowly overlooking our way past really good career options, and we're leaving them with nobody to fill. So the first thing I do is try to direct them to the technical schools. But then I would say if the counselors are actually out there seeking opportunities for what do you call it? Scholarships and things like that, why not pick up the phone and call Drayback and Hill or some, I'm just throwing out that name, and say, hey, do you have apprenticeships for, I've got a student here that's a sharp kid, but he is not going to go to college and he wants to learn the trade. Can we get him started? That'd be the next thing that I would recommend.
We do have an apprenticeship program that is registered.
Wonderful. That's good to know, because I'm always trying to share those opportunities with educators, with schools, with students. What got you into this industry and why are you staying? Scott, you want to answer that one?
The industry is phenomenal. It's got, in Oklahoma, I think we have less than 4% of the market. We probably have the majority share of that market as far as with the geothermal drilling. The room for growth is just crazy. But to work with the guys I get to work with is just, it's amazing. That's to see these guys where they show up and where they're at and where they are. We don't ever hold them back. If they find a job that it betters them and their family, man, we wish them the best. Do it right, give us notice, come back. If it doesn't work out, and they do. But that's from my side. It's the ministry side that keeps me here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Scott. Boyd, what about you?
Well, I began in 1982, believe it or not, as a lineman apprentice. And it took me a year and 2 months to figure out that I wasn't tough enough to be a lineman. And so right about that time, you want to talk about the providence of God. Right at that time, when I'd made that decision, the energy use specialist position opened up, and I applied for it and got it. And from that point forward, I started learning energy use. I started off with a stack of 65 energy audits that hadn't been done that needed to get done, and I had no training at that point. So I had to seek some quick training, and then I just had to go jump in. And I came to the realization that people just need to hear reality. They need to hear solutions and so forth. Most people go about their daily lives unaware of what their life's habits actually cost them. And so learning how to talk to them about that and give them alternative ways to achieve the same thing and reduce their bill is very, very pleasing. And then in 1987, I was introduced to ground source heat pumps at Oklahoma State University, and I was hooked from that point on. And so I spent the next 25 years, I guess, trying to figure out the best way that we could impact a large number of residential customers and their cost of power. And I'll have to admit, the success has been very gratifying. We've had a lot of success, and it's a no-brainer to stay in the industry. It has more impact on people than anything else.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Great information. I feel like I've learned a lot. I think our audience will feel the same way. So
Good.
Thank you, guys.
yes.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. It's been
Appreciate
great.
it.
All
Boyd,
right,
great
we'll
to
talk
see
to
you.
you soon.